Hey there class, Andy here. In this video lesson we're going to cover F and G7 chords, which is going to round out our basic chords in the key of C and allow us to play a lot of songs using just 4 or 5 chords. So we already know C, which is our 1 in this key. We know 5, our G. So let's cover F and G7. So F in the key of C is the 4 chord and G7 is the 5/7 chord. F is going to be ring finger on the 3rd fret of the D string. That's our root. We're going to have our middle finger on the 2nd fret of the G string. It's our 3rd. And then our pointer finger needs to cover the 1st fret on the B and E string. So this finger is kind of doing like a mini bar of sorts, and it's covering 2 strings with just 1 finger. There's a couple different ways you can do this. You can focus your pointer finger only on these 2 strings. So you see how I only have kind of this part of it over the strings, and then bring in your ring and your middle finger and do it like this. Or you can do what I do more, is I really kind of bar the top 4 strings with my pointer finger. So I have my pointer finger, you see, covering all of this. And then my 2 fretted notes on my middle and ring finger, those are going to come in and supersede that bar. You see how my fingers are quite tilted to make that happen. The F chord will require a little bit of compromise of like perfect form, but it is not just a useful chord but a necessary chord that we should all know. So your F chord again, ring finger 3rd fret of the D string, middle finger 2nd fret of the G string, pointer finger needs to cover the 1st fret on the top 2 strings. Whether it sits just on those 2 strings or you kind of bring it down over all these, is up to you. Just find what works best for you and is most comfortable for you. So spend a good amount of time with this chord because it can take a little bit to really get all notes to speak. What you'll probably find is in the beginning you have trouble with the top notes and getting them to speak. So don't get discouraged. This chord just takes a little while to really get under your fingers and get sounding consistent. But with some good practice, you will be able to get there. That's your F chord. Some of you may play your F chord like this. You see that it has a like more bottom end of the chord. That's an F bar chord. If you already know it like that and you're really comfortable with that, you can use that. But if you don't know your bar chords yet, which we're not going to get to those until the end of the semester, this is a good F voicing to know. It's a little lighter. It's not so bottom heavy. So I kind of like it timbrally for that reason. So practice this. That is your F chord. Then we'll go on to G7. So we normally play G like this, sometimes with the ring finger in there. To play G7, we have to change this fundamental shape of our hand. So instead of our middle finger hitting the G, the 3rd fret of the E, we're going to change that to our ring finger. So our ring finger is now going to hit the root, the 3rd fret of the low E string. Our middle finger is going to hit that 2nd fret of the A string. And then we're going to leave the D, G, and B strings open. We're going to come up and grab the 1st fret on the high E string with our pointer finger. G7 leads really nicely into C. And if you're going from G to G7, you can even play your regular G chord with this basic shape and just bring your pinky up to the 3rd fret of the high E string. So you have G, then you move to your pointer finger, 1st fret of the high E, G7. So that can be useful if you're going from G to G7 and you don't want to change the fundamental shape of your hand in that. Hit a wrong note. But G7 is useful to know. It's useful to know in the same way that A7 is useful to know in the key of D. The D7 is useful to know in the key of G because it's a stronger 5-to-1 push than just a basic 5 chord to 1 chord, 5 with no 7. Nice to know, G7. And again, that chord is ring finger, 3rd fret of the low E string, middle finger, 2nd fret of the A string. We leave our D, G, and B strings open. We have our pointer finger up here on the 1st fret of the high E. So practice those 2 chords. We're going to get a lot of mileage out of them, especially on the midterm exam. So hope everyone practices that well. And stay tuned for videos that go over songs that use these chords.